afternoon, good evening. It's good to see you all, and today we're going to be doing some gouache painting. I have my little sketchbook that I've been working in. This is the Etcher sketchbook. I've been working in the past streams. I'm just going to tape down our little sketchbook here. What tape do you use? Okay, so this one is by Deltec, D-E-L-T-E-C, and I bought this at a local arts shop, and I really like this tape. There's one other tape that I also use that I bought on Amazon it's just called Pro Artist tape, and there's like no other branding. I might do a little sketch here first on the paper. I also like to tape down this sheet back here just because it causes a shadow. I always try to use like old pieces of tape for that. Sometimes I always like save my tape after I peel it off, so you can see like the paint. And sometimes I use them for just random other stuff that needs taping, where it doesn't matter if there's paint on the tape. For our painting for today, I'm gonna draw a little line up here. I want the horizon line and like the distant tree line to be kind of on that top third. So we're gonna do just some little ups and downs just to make it interesting, hopefully, on that tree line in the back. And then there's, so this area is a lake. There's a little bit of land that kind of comes out into the lake here. Further back, and we get a little bit of water in between there. And then in the foreground, it kind of comes up like this. And there's gonna be reeds and stuff standing up. So we only see like a little bit of water, but it's still enough to, yeah, give the feeling of what this kind of place is. It was really pretty this day that we went. People were swimming. I've never gone swimming here, but it looked so refreshing. It looked really nice. I would swim there, just, I don't know, it would have to be a really warm day, because I'm such a, like, when it comes to water temperatures, I grew up in South Florida, and I'm used to the water being so warm every time, and going swimming when the water is super cold, it's not for me. So yeah, but it did look nice, and I think on a really hot day it would feel great. Okay, well, I think maybe that's it for my sketch. We'll just get into the painting and then figure out the details there. I never like to get too detailed with my gouache sketches because I end up painting over it very quickly, but that's enough. Okay, so I'm gonna be, starting with the sky, the furthest thing in our scene here, and I'm going to use some aqua blue, Holbein aqua blue, and maybe some ultramarine deep. And I'm going to wet the paper. Okay, so I'm wetting the canvas, the paper. We can call it a canvas, right? Wetting the paper, and then I usually just wait a few seconds for it to soak in a bit. It just depends. If I put too much water, then I've gotta wait longer, but I think this amount looks really good, so I'm just gonna give it a few seconds. And then I'm gonna use some newer brushes today. I'm very excited about these brushes. These are from Japan. They're absolutely beautiful. Like, the quality is really, really nice. Yeah, so I wanted to share these. I don't know how to pronounce this properly. Shugetsudo. I'm gonna see if I can find someone pronouncing that properly online so I know how to say it. They have made these gorgeous brushes sort of in collaboration with Studio Ghibli. Like, they worked with Studio Ghibli artists to design these brushes and test them and sort of make brushes according to their needs. You know, I have to share because I spent a really long time trying to figure out what type of brushes they use, and for some reason it wasn't that easy to find. And when I finally found the information, I was just like, I know other people were looking to you know, to find out what kind of tools they use. So anyway, there they are. amazing brush makers. Okay, so I'm creating a gradient in the sky. Okay, so I'm taking a clean brush, clean water, and I'm gonna try to lift up some, I might need a harder brush than this, like a firmer one. So in total, I think there's 3 pages left that I could paint in this sketchbook, but I think I'll only paint in 2 of them. I kind of like leaving the front page empty. Could, if anything, write some notes there about what's in the sketchbook. I think this brush had a little bit of like paint still on it. I tried to rinse it off. I need to do better at cleaning my brushes. I'm so bad with that. I just rinse them off at the end of my painting. I don't leave them dirty, but sometimes I just give them a quick rinse rather than like thoroughly washing them. The new brushes that I just got, I'm gonna take very good care of. Sometimes, especially with my older brushes, I just give them a quick rinse. Right now, I've been trying to do every other Wednesday here, and maybe if I can, then I'll be adding some more days to that. But it's just nice to be here. It's nice to be here at least a little bit. Thank you. Hi, Deseriva. Good to see you. Hey, Goat Babe. Yeah, beat the devil out of it. Apparently I get pretty enthusiastic sometimes with swishing in the water jar or something. I don't know. There's definitely paint splatters in the room though. So I'm adding some white into the areas that I lifted the paint. Get water on the windows when I wash dishes. Yeah, there can also be a lot of splashing involved there too. Goat Babe says, if I may ask, what brush are you using? Da Vinci Casaneo. Did you ever buy any brush soap? It works very well. I've never done that. So I probably should, especially now that I'm actually getting some nicer brushes and I want to take care of them. I should probably get some brush soap. Usually I just use water, and that seems good enough for most things, but okay, I'm gonna add some water, add some blue here for the water in the image, the lake. Yeah, we're gonna have the tree line coming up here. Like, I wonder if I should give it a little bit of a different hue. It's a very similar color to the sky in the photo, which makes sense because it's just reflecting. I have brush soap. My fave is the Masters Artist Soap. That's one I've seen. Or brush cleaner and preserver. Okay. I was always a bit lazy with it. With using all water-soluble paints and stuff, I was always just like, water's enough. But especially after many, many uses, it's probably good to give them a real wash. Foster says the Masters brush soap is great. It will get out so much paint from brushes that you think are clean. Keeps them conditioned too. Very nice. I'm gonna have to get that. Okay, so while that's drying, I wonder if I should put... So I'm thinking about layering, and what I like to do is get rid of the white as early as possible in the process. And I'm thinking maybe down here I'm gonna want to paint sort of light over dark. So I was thinking maybe I can put a dark color in here right now and then paint some greens on top of it. So I'm going to use Spectrum Violet. I have Ultramarine already on the palette. Some Burnt Umber. And maybe black, just a little bit. I have a bunch of paint that's dried on the palette from my work the other day, and I usually just, if I'm working on a painting that has similar colors, I'll usually just work right on top of that other paint, and some of it gets reactivated as we go and kind of get to use up some older paint that way. Okay, this is gonna be really dark. Alright, and then I want it to switch, shift a little bit more to purple up here, I think. Alright, and it's gonna be hard for you guys to see any hue shift here. It's very subtle, and it's also dark that it's kind of hard to tell, but I'm shifting a little bit into blues up here. It's like more brown over here and more blue over here, but just by a little bit. Okay, and then I'm gonna make a little transition to dark green. Okay, so all this is gonna get painted on top of with the next layer. For some reason it looks beachy. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. It is sort of a shoreline type thing. It's just a lake instead of the ocean. Okay, and then up here on the top left, it's gonna transition into sunlight. So I'm going with the more warm yellow-green. This little bit that extends out here. Alright, so I think maybe this is all that I should do at this point until it dries, and then we do another layer. I think the dark green is still a little lighter than I expected. It's not a problem, just it's lighter and also more like bluish than I expected. So we'll just, I might do another layer and kind of get that a little closer to what I had in mind. So maybe I'll switch brushes now and try working with one of these. The other day when I was trying them out, I was working on a slightly larger paper, so we're gonna see if they are gonna really work for this size paper. I hope so, because I would like to use them today. But you also can't force it. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit of burnt sienna, and I'm also going to add some fresh green, light green here. Alright, so we have the dark green. I'm gonna go a little lighter and mix a little bit of this brown. Hey Komaki! Welcome. Well, that's cool. Alright, let's do this view. So one thing that I really like about these brushes is how you can use them to paint like grassy kind of textures. And especially if you look at the palette real quick, if you press your brush down like this, you can do this with any brush too. It doesn't have to be like a fancy brush. You kind of squish it down a little bit, and it causes the tip to like separate a little bit. So you've got these separate little points, and then you can kind of go lightly like this. Little grassy kind of shapes. But yeah, it is a really nice brush. But this is a technique that I've been doing for grasses and things for a while, and I have some like, cheap brushes, and yeah, you can still use this technique with really any brush, but this one is very nice the way the shapes that form from it. I feel like it gives a lot of organic shapes and nice variety. Instagraph, yeah. Exactly. So here, just gonna layer, I think, so here it's very transparent, the mix that I have right now. So you can see it works well up here because I'm painting dark over light, but down here it doesn't work as well. So I have to get a more opaque mix. So let's see, I'll put more white on my palette. So white you can add to anything to make it more opaque. Of course it will also lighten it. But if you don't mind a little bit of lighter shade to the color you're using, if you add some white, it will help with the opacity. Hi Tanner. Good morning. A lot faster than painting each blade with a small brush for sure. Yes. And I have a brush that's really cool I can show you guys. If I can find it in a reasonable amount of time. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is the brush, but it's a like a comber brush. And so it has this kind of shape naturally. It's like been thinned out a little bit. So you can also use that type of brush that is like automatically split at the end. The bluish green came straight out of the tube. It's so beautiful. That color is this one, Permanent Green Deep, the Holbein Permanent Green Deep. I really love this color. Yeah, if anybody's like looking for it. So that color was part of the original Holbein set that I tried, the 18 color set, and I think it's also in the 12 color set. So I was introduced to that one early on, and it has definitely been a staple. It turned out to be a nice day here. We had a very like stormy, dark morning, and now it's looking pretty nice outside. Actually, sun and some nice clouds. Actually, kind of looks like the picture I'm painting right now. So I want to give a little bit of a shadow here. The bit of land that's extending out, I just want to give a little darker green to the bottom. Yeah, this brush feels really big for what I'm doing, but that's okay. Oh, thank you. So I want to paint these trees in the background here. I think I will switch to a smaller brush for this. And they have a really cool color to them because it's like a muted green, blue, brown. There's like a little bit of all of that going on. So I'm going to use this aqua blue mixed with green. Maybe add a touch of burnt sienna to mute it. Oh, here, let me show you my palette. So I've got aqua blue, green, and then I brought a little bit of this over. And my test sheet is getting pretty messy, but yeah, so that's the color we have there. Are you sad that you're missing out on the hurricane? No, it's okay. I had my fair share of hurricanes already. I hope everyone is gonna be fine and it won't be, I hope there won't be too much damage, but hurricanes are just so much work to deal with. So I'm also mixing slightly more brown color and just dropping in a couple little boop, 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 little brush strokes here and there, and since it's all wet, they're kind of dissolving together. So I hope it's gonna look like trees that have slightly different shades to them and things like that. So you can also do that with the blue. We just missed the hailstorm at work this afternoon. Sure, we'll be busy tomorrow with inquiries for busted and leaky roofs. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Had a hurricane last year, woke up to chainsaws all day the next day. Yeah, having to clear all the trees and everything that's fallen. So I'm trying to keep the value pretty light back here. I probably could have gone even lighter if we wanted to be really dramatic with the atmospheric perspective. But I think this will be enough. Could always lift up a little bit. Over on the left, we have some larger trees with an even lighter color on top, and I'm not sure how to find that color. That's not really it. It needs to be more brown. Okay, that's closer, I think. Maybe I'll bring that onto the top of some of these. It's interesting how kind of grayish some of these trees look from far away. I'm not sure what type of tree it is. There's just the way that the leaves reflect. And they're pretty muted color. Add some shadows. There's gonna be some other plants. So in between here and here, there's gonna be some other plants that come up. So this area is like a bit awkward right now, but I think when we do that middle layer, it'll make more sense. Add some shadows to the bottom here. There's this tree line. Okay, I'm trying to blend that a little bit more naturally there. It's kind of fun how it already starts to look like something, even though it's in a very basic stage right now. It's kind of cool. It's just, I guess, because the values and colors are, like, the main things are blocked in, and it already is like, you can kind of see the scene if you squint. From far away, it kind of looks like something. All right, so I want to bring some longer reeds and things up here. So that's why I grabbed this brush, and also try this view. So this scene, especially this area in the front, is gonna take a bit of layering, but I find it relaxing to do this kind of scene and just do layer after layer of foliage and adding more detail each time. Cute brush. It is cute. It's very handy too. I grab a little bit of a lighter green. Tesla says the internet says silver and gray leaves are often an indication of plants that are heat and drought tolerant. This is because the leaf color may arise from adaptations to reduce water loss. I didn't think drought was a problem in your neck of the woods. Wow. Huh. That is very interesting. Yeah, it's true for the most part. There's a lot of rain and a lot of water here. But yeah, there's a lot of these trees, especially around this lake, They have sort of a silvery look to them. And I think it's really pretty, even though I'm generally a fan of like bright saturated colors, and I really like bright greens and, you know, subsurface scattering and light shining through the leaves and all that, but this is a nice feeling too, especially with it makes the atmospheric perspective feel even more dramatic, because the distant trees are sort of that kind of a paler color anyway. Okay. Trying to decide what to do next. I think I'm gonna switch to a different brush. So I'm gonna use a small detail brush. This is Van Gogh by Royal Talons, and this is size 4. It's just a artificial or synthetic brush, and it has a nice snap to it, so it's pretty firm. And so I like using this kind of brush for details, plants and things like that, especially when I'm layering. So I'm gonna put some fresh paint. So when I'm layering, I'll usually tend to use thicker paint to paint on top of what's already there. So if you use a little less water, then of course it's more opaque and easier to see on top of whatever's below. So for layering, I start to use firmer brushes. Because they have to sort of stand up to the texture of the paint and hold their shape. Foster says drought is definitely a problem here this year. Lack of rainfall is now being measured in feet instead of inches. Over 3 feet lacking now. Oh my goodness, that is crazy. I didn't realize it was quite that bad. I'm sorry to hear that. We had a very strange time here this year. We had record rainfall in the early part of spring. I mean, it was crazy. And then it went directly from that to not raining for like 3 weeks or more in a row, and then it went from super crazy rain to very dry, just like instantly. It's been a really weird year here weather-wise, at least for me. I mean, I've only been here about 5 years. Yeah, a little over 5 years. But it's definitely been different than all the other years. So we were having a little bit of a weird one. So you can see the brush strokes I'm making are a little bit thicker with this brush. That is just, it's a larger brush. It's kind of hard to make very tiny little brush strokes. But if you look in the reference picture, you'll see that there are like different thicker and thinner reeds. So it works out, but I will probably have to switch to a different brush soon, because I don't want this whole area to be full of ones of this thickness. They need a variety. I want a couple that are a little longer, just poking up to sort of activate negative space of the lake. Unknown Variable says it's been the same here in the UK, alternating between blazing hot sunshine and cold and raining. Yeah, it's very strange. The round brush looks so versatile. I love this brush. I bought a pack of 3 brushes that came together from this brand, and there's a middle size too here somewhere. And this was probably like one of my best brush purchases ever as far as usefulness, the value, right? Like the usefulness to price ratio. These are like some of my top 3 most used brushes, and they were not expensive, and I can't remember exactly what I paid for them. I'm sorry, but it was like a 3-pack that came together, and it was very fairly priced. I think it was maybe around 15 euros. So something like that, and they're awesome, so definitely recommend. if you can find them where you are, because I know I think these might be made here. Helen says British summers are quite changeable though. It's more unusual to have weeks of heat wave, which thankfully we haven't had this year. Yeah, that's good, and hopefully that won't be happening. Huge caterpillars live on eucalyptus trees. Really? Do they turn into huge butterflies? All right, so I think I'm gonna switch back to, well, okay, I was about to say I was gonna switch back to a smaller brush, but you know what I'm gonna do instead is keep using this brush, but I'm just gonna move lower. And we're gonna work where this whole area with the thicker brush strokes first, and then we'll move to thinner brush. That's the plan. Oh, X-Equip, I'm so sorry to hear that. And it is no joke, those heat waves. I had a little bit of a taste of it when so last year, around this time, actually would have been, yeah, earlier this month, 1 year ago, I was in Madrid during a heat wave for filming the Domestica course that I did. And it was absolutely awful. I just can't imagine. I mean, it was already rough because we were there for about like a week, and that was already very difficult. And I just can't imagine having that time after time, living through that, you know, in one summer, having to go through that over and over again. I really hope it's gonna calm down with all that. Big and furry moths. Oh, cool. I like moths. Yeah, Madrid was crazy. And all, you know, everyone who lived there was like, why are you here? Like, we kept running into people. People would ask us, well, you know, when we were out to eat or whatever, just out and about, and people would be like, why are you here? And it's like, well, I'm here for a work reason, because they were just like, don't come here now. It's like all the locals are just telling us to not be there. I was like, oh no. Apparently a lot of people leave at that time, which is totally understandable. There was construction going on everywhere, and we were told that that is because so many people leave at that time of the year that they try to do a lot of construction and stuff on the roads. Bad timing, yeah. It was bad timing, but what can you do? It was still it was still an experience. It was an adventure for sure. Okay, I want to get a little closer here. Oh, I'm sorry. Like coming to Texas in August, just don't. I want to try getting real close up here, if possible, so you guys can see. When I'm doing such a small sketchbook and such a small brush that I'm working with, it's hard to see what's going on. So I'm trying right now, I'm focusing more on creating texture groupings than anything else. So in the photo, there's these different bushes, and they have all these tiny leaves, so for me it just becomes a texture. So I'm just kind of trying to create like a grouping of something like this. It doesn't have to be extremely precise or really look like individual leaves. Just want to kind of put some groupings together, and then we're going to have like grasses coming up in between and filling in different areas. But we just want texture variety. That's what's gonna make it look more lush and natural, that we don't have just the same kind of grass over the whole area. So, and I'm kind of trying to introduce some different colors. You can see like a little bit more green, like a yellow green. So I'm gonna put some more brown over here. I don't know if you can tell yet. There we go. So texture variety, hue variety, These are just some ways we can take like a big mass of foliage like this and try to make it more understandable when you look at it, that everything isn't just the same. We have these little bits of different things going on. Hey, Jack the Joker, welcome. Already like the painting because of the presence of water? Yes. We have a nice refreshing lake in this scene. Did you ever spend a lot of time on drawing? Yes, yes. I have spent, I mean, even just thinking back to these really big pen and ink drawings that I used to make many years ago now, it was probably like maybe 10, 12 years ago. I was working in pen and ink and making really, really large scale artworks, and those, a couple of them took, like one of them took around 250 hours to do, so that's definitely a long time. My paintings are smaller, and generally I haven't spent that much time on them, comparatively speaking. I think the longest amount of time I spent on a physical painting, one of these gouache paintings, is probably around 30 hours. But usually, sketchbook one like this could be anywhere from like an hour and a half to like 3 hours. Thank God that gouache exists. It must be exhausting painting that much time. Yeah, I love working in gouache. I find it very, very relaxing most of the time. Most of the time. Sometimes you have one of those paintings that gets under your skin, you know, but like mostly relaxing and wonderful to do. So just doing like these little kind of, I don't know how to explain it, kind of jabbing into the paper, these little quick little boop, 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 boop. That's kind of brush stroke that I'm doing here. Let's see, top-down view. It's gonna be fun to put some wildflowers over top of this. So this is why I did that kind of stripe at the beginning of like that dark color in here. So then we could take these, the top area here, the bottom, and kind of overlap that area to create these like shadows, the light over dark kind of effect. But I only wanted it to be in this area, you know, it didn't make sense for the whole composition to be done in a light over dark, just this one section. Yeah, oh my gosh, those are so cool, Foster. The I saw one this year, and it's been a couple years since I saw one. The hummingbird moth. They're so fun. I wish they would come by more often into my garden. They're just really beautiful, but they're very quick moving. They really do like move like hummingbirds, and they just kind of come in and out. Like if you spot one, you usually only get a few seconds, or if you're lucky, maybe a minute to check it out, and then it's gone. LGN, I'm mostly using Holbein. And I have one or two colors from Winsor & Newton that I really like that I tend to mix in with the Holbein. The Spectrum Violet is one, but I would say like 80 to 90% of my paint tubes are Holbein. So I'm still working with this round brush. I've been using this one for a while. So you can see now if we take some slightly lighter greens and sort of overlap some reeds on top of what we've been painting here. So we're gonna add some wildflowers in the photo. There's white ones and yellow ones, and I think we can add maybe even more than what's in the photo. Maybe we can add some purple ones, or just, we'll see what looks good. But the scene is pretty limited on the amount of colors. You know, it's blues, greens, some brown and some purple. But other than that, there's not a lot of color, like variety. So, I mean, these are my favorite colors, so I don't mind that. But I do think it's nice to put like little pops of some other colors. I think it adds a lot. So we'll see about that when it comes to the wildflowers. So here, there's gonna be a couple flowers coming up here with like a more recognizable shape. So I think I'm gonna need to work behind here first, because we're gonna have some longer, taller flowers coming up. So I think it's gonna be easier to do that when the area underneath of it is done. So let's work on that area. It's all dry up here now. So I think I'm gonna use a flat brush. This is a synthetic brush, so this one also is pretty springy. So what I'm adding right now, it's not really looking great yet, and I think the main issue is these trees when they come up higher. Now the highlight here is almost the same color as what's behind it, and so it's kind of getting lost. So I think I need to darken these shadows, and then suddenly the shapes will appear again. All right, I'm gonna bring this a little further out. All right, I'm gonna try now behind here to make it a little bit darker. And I have to be careful because I like the atmospheric perspective, so I don't want to make it too dark. But as you can see right away, if I make this darker, then the trees in front are a lot more visible all of a sudden, or at least that shape. Hopefully it'll look like trees after we add some texture. Today actually is really nice right now. It was raining this morning. It cleared up a bit. It was first sunny, then heavy rain, then light rain, then cloud, then sunny again, all in 2 hours. There you go. Seriously, that is what the weather likes to do here. And I know a lot of places have changing weather, so I'm sure people can relate to this, especially in like the springtime, for example. But here, it's very intense sometimes. It really does. It's very hard to like plan anything. You just gotta like look outside and say, oh, okay, let's go. Because I like to go on hikes and things, and it's impossible to know what day is gonna be good. Like, I'm telling you, this morning it looked like the sun wasn't gonna come out for a week, the type of weather we had this morning, and then now it's nice. What do people wear to work then? That's a good question. I don't know, you just go for it. Also, people here are very used to the cold and the weather being like it is, because when we're out sometimes, you know, I'll be really cold and bundled up, and there's people wearing t-shirts and stuff, so yeah, I guess somehow people can just get used to it. Not me though. I don't think I'll ever be able to deal with the cold that well. Some people are just like immune to the cold. One of my neighbors is like that. I will. There was one time, oh my gosh, I was actually embarrassed because we were walking out of the house and I was literally wearing a winter coat and she had a tank top and she's out in the front just like doing some stuff in her garden and I was just like waving hello and I don't know. I was like, I felt like the crazy one, you know. I was like, I'm so weak. Kiranov says, I prefer heat. Give me the 35 plus degree weather. I know that a lot of people would disagree with me, but growing up in South Florida, I'm a bit more used to heat than cold. So for me, that would probably be the better choice too. But also, I'm just cold often. I don't know if I have bad circulation or something, but I'm often cold. So I feel like when it takes a lot longer for me to be warm, like everyone around me will be complaining that it's too hot and I'll be fine. So Project says I start complaining when the temperature is over 20 degrees. I live in a temperate country. I prefer the middle. Yeah, I mean, if you can, if you can just have like the perfect weather. Leanna says, heard some of that. Love fall and I prefer being cold over being hot. Yeah, autumn is such a nice time of year. I kind of wish we had like a longer autumn here. It seems to go really fast. That's probably the case everywhere though, isn't it? To some degree. I just feel like the leaves, it's just like instantly. They just like fall off. There's not like a lot, it's not a long colorful time period here. They're just like, we're done. It's winter now. When I lived in Georgia, when I was in Georgia for the autumn, it was like so beautiful. The colors were really, really bright. But Helen says my main problem with summer is having to have the windows open. Like, I don't want to hear the world go away. Yup. So true. It gets very loud all of a sudden. Oh, that's nice, Bruce. That's true, Kiranov, that makes sense. Yeah, I remember that last year too. That is the reason, isn't it? In October, we always have these storms, and instantly after, all the trees have no leaves. There was like one final storm. There's one storm last year, and it literally just ended the autumn. I remember that. It was like, after that storm, all the leaves were done. They were gone. Yeah, crazy wind. It took down our fence, too. Last year, we had a fence in our backyard just got totally destroyed in one of those storms. Unknown variable says depends on the trees. Maples change through color slowly. Others like ash just one day go nope and suddenly leaves are all yellow and on the floor around them. That makes sense that the different trees have a different way of losing their leaves. So I'm just letting this part dry and then you can touch it up a little bit. So I've moved back down here and getting a warmer, more yellow green to do a little bit of another layer on top of what we've already done here. So just to add sort of like a highlight layer. Will your painting slowly turn to autumn as well? I tried that one year. I did a summer series, and then I did an autumn series, and then I started a winter series, and I just like lost all inspiration. And the thing is, I just like painting summer scenes. Autumn I can do autumn too, because there's still foliage, there's still lots of, I mean, autumn is beautiful and there's lots of color still, and leaves. Mainly leaves are the thing. I need foliage. I love painting plants and like lush scenes. So the winter scenes don't appeal so much, even though people can paint beautiful, beautiful winter scenes, and I appreciate other artists' work, but when it comes to what I want to paint myself, I tend to not enjoy so much painting winter scenes. Helen says I've already got trees turning in my garden. The big oak is feeding the squirrels for winter. Oh, it does get that feeling now already. Like, I'm seeing little changes, and this is like something in the air. It does kind of feel like it's about that time already. What about a mix? Like in the sand dunes, plenty of foliage there with all the nice sand. Yes, I've taken a bunch of photos in those types of environments here. And I have painted some. I wonder if I have any handy that I could show. I'm just trying to think. But I do like that kind of environment too, with like the heather and the dunes and things like that. This is actually a really nice time of year to see. I want to have this reaching up a little bit and put some spaces in between. And I'll probably paint a little bit of blue coming back down in between too, so that it just looks more fluffy. And I'll just extend it a little bit more down here. All right, and then in the distance, we have a bit of green grassy area at the base of this tree line. Can mix with white, maybe a little bit of yellow, so the top that is a little lighter. And maybe a little bit more, so we'll get burnt sienna. And then have some of this grass kind of coming up here. There's some interesting shapes in the shadows of these trees back here. Just kind of like little crevices kind of forming, little pockets of shadow. And so it's more interesting than just one large blob. So I like having one big shape as like, I want it to read well, like, okay, there's a big mass there, but then once we get past that stage, we do want to add some interesting things to look at within that shape. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do now. Yeah, I do, Kiranov, I do love going for hikes here because I feel less in danger of encountering something very poisonous or aggressive, or yeah, it's a pretty safe place to enjoy the nature here in the Netherlands, relatively speaking. Okay, I'm gonna move this back a little bit. Hedgehogs, yes! I even saw hedgehogs in my neighborhood. I absolutely love them. They are so cute. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Hopefully not, you know, not going too far, but we need a little texture and just a little bit of something here. I'm gonna make like some vertical brush strokes and just little textures here because we want it to look like there's little individual trees and groupings of trees and stuff. Just kind of makes some little separation. Hedgehogs and tiny helicopters. Right? That's how they're gonna get into my garden. We were talking about that in a past stream, right? I was saying I want hedgehogs to come into my garden, but there's a fence. so we need to get a system to bring them in. Helicopters. I was thinking little mini hot air balloons. They could come over. Like 2 years ago, yeah. I need to dust off that memory. Yeah, Helen, I want to make like a little, you know, like a little cat or doggy door for hedgehogs to come in. Because I saw this book, this gardening book, and it was talking about how to attract hedgehogs, and I was like, I can do all that, but they're not going to be able to get in. I'm just going to keep layering. So I started with a bluer, like a darker blue-green, and then we've been layering and getting a little bit more yellow. And I'm just trying to follow the reference. That's something that I see there with how the foliage is layering naturally. So I'm trying to follow that. So I'm just continuing with the reedy texture here. I think I'm gonna fill this whole area down to the bottom. So I'm mixing up a darker blue-green. I'm kind of working on the transition areas between the really dark shadows and the green coming over top of it, because right now I feel like it's a bit stark, and this camera view shows it even more. I don't know why the contrast is so high there, but yeah, so I'm coming in between here and just adding like a little transition. I'm also going to add some shadows. I'm gonna grab the purple, little bit of Spectrum Violet and Ultramarine, and then come down here. Actually, I think this is maybe better. So I'm gonna come down here and add some little shadows in between. So I don't want to go too much because this is going to be the largest area, but just a couple reaching down. And then over here, in the photo at least, it's a bit darker in like the whole area over here, and I'm kind of wondering if I should do that in my version 2 or not. It's like there's little pros and cons. So I think I'm going with a more brown, like what we have up here, more brown shade, a little more transparent, and I am gonna kind of glaze it in a little bit. So I'm just gonna kind of blend and darken this just a little. When it's wet, it looks more dramatic, but I think when it dries, it will be still somewhat subtle here. So I kind of want to blend into this. I'm bringing some darker little bits, getting closer to that darker area, just kind of make it less stark. I'll show you my color mixing. It's a very transparent right now. It might be too transparent actually. I'm going to dry off my brush. Yeah, it's a very transparent mix. Not necessarily a bad thing, but add a little bit more white. Trying to find the right amount. I want it to be like a gentle, subtle update here. So I'm trying not to be too bold, so a little bit transparent, but still enough to cover some of the shadows. So it needs to have enough paint that when it dries, it's still gonna have made a difference here. Foster says, being gouache, will this color dry a bit darker? That's a good question. I think it is, actually. For me, it's kind of, so generally, light colors dry a little bit darker. That's what I've noticed. But sometimes it's weird when you have a very transparent mixture. Sometimes it can be hard to guess, hard to predict the exact results of it, you know? I do think it darkened a little bit as it's been drying, which is a good thing. I think it looks a little bit more natural. So I just want a dark green that's like in the shadows. So I'm gonna go with dark green, but with a lot of brown in it, not like a blue green, because the contrast is pretty intense, and that's just the color I'm seeing in the reference. So I'm kind of trying to match with that. So for certain types of brush strokes, I feel like I have to get a very solid place to rest my hand because I need to be really stable. So I want to bring flower up like this. I want a nice little thin little stroke. Go for another one here. And then we're gonna add some things branching off. Boop. Don't drink coffee, but I love hot chocolate. Oh, hot chocolate is so delicious. I am a big fan. And I also love apple cider. We were talking about the approaching autumn earlier in stream, and apple cider is like one of my favorite things that time of the year. But yes, definitely hot chocolate. So I kind of want to avoid a tangent. So in the photo, the flowers end right here. And this is sort of like where this bit of land ends too. So I kind of feel like maybe I should bring my flowers up a tiny bit and just cross over that plane. Just make them taller. Yeah. It's also funny sometimes, indeed, when you go back and look at paintings, like older paintings that you really loved at the time, and then later you're finding all these different things that you're like, oh, what was that? Like, you can see the mistakes in it. It's a really good thing, you know? That means your vision is improving. So it's always good to see your own mistakes. It's one of the most helpful things in being able to improve your art. Helen says, conversely, I've been having fun watching my old time lapses back. Sometimes I give myself a pat on the back. You should. You know, it's funny because I think sometimes when you're very close to painting, like you've just finished it, you still are very emotionally involved, and then later you kind of lose that and you forget maybe some of your expectations that you had for it, and you're just looking at the painting more like what it is rather than all that stuff attached to it. So I do think sometimes taking a break from your work and then looking at it, you definitely have a different opinion. Oh no. It's funny. It's definitely a journey. I always like seeing artists' older work, or yeah, just seeing how the art style progresses and things. So I want to make, all right, so there are some reeds here. like right in this area, that are like a little bit of like, they're kind of about this color, maybe a little bit more pale. They have really, really tiny little details, and I'm wondering if I can even paint that small with the brushes that I have. I'm gonna try. Even if the whole painting feels like trash these days, there are elements I'm still proud of. That is so important. Even in a painting that you don't love or you're not super happy with, it is really important to try to find the parts of it that you like. You know, you've got to celebrate the small victories. You're not gonna love everything about every painting. That's one of the I'd really try to do that myself. Is like, even a painting that I don't like, there's some part of it that worked, and then you got to take encouragement from that. And also just for learning, you know, it's nice to say like, okay, that part worked, so I need to remember that for the next time. Yeah. I have mixed feelings about the area that I'm working on right now. I hope I haven't cluttered it up too much. I feel like there's just so much noise going on there now from all these little marks. What I'm gonna do is try to group things up in some areas. So for example, I'm looking at the photo, and basically you don't see all these spaces here. It's pretty thick with these reeds. So I'm gonna just fill in a little bit at the bottom more to group it up, and then at the top we'll keep this texture. Well, let's see if that is better. Hi Akita, welcome back. Been a long time. Truth is, I kind of grew out of drawing. I do not know if it's because of depression or if I just grew out of it, but I can't find the energy to draw anymore. Can you relate? Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you are feeling that way, especially if you're, you know, dealing with depression or things like that. And I hope things are going to get better for you soon with that stuff. Indeed, I think it can affect your energy for creativity a lot. I have in the past experienced some things like that, like years back, and it is really hard, you know, when you're not feeling good and you're not happy. It takes a lot of your energy. It can be hard to find energy for anything. So you definitely shouldn't be hard on yourself about that. Also, there are things you can do, like if you want to get back into your drawing and you're kind of looking at ways to do that, I could give some suggestions of things that helped me. And one thing is to kind of relax your expectations about things, especially if you've had like an amount of time off, you know, from drawing and stuff, and you might feel a bit rusty. So just kind of be kind to yourself about getting back into it, and don't try not to be like upset if you are not getting certain results that you want or something like that. Try to get back in touch with like enjoying the process of it if you can, because it can also bring a lot of comfort and relaxation and happiness if you can just enjoy the process and not be like, if you can be less results oriented with it and more just have some fun with it. You know, take care of yourself, try to eat well, try to sleep. And if you want to get back into your art, try to remember the things that used to make you inspired to draw and paint, and see if you can maybe do some things like that again. Like if you, like for me, going to the forest or walking in parks and things makes me feel inspired. So those are things that I like to do to get me like more in the mood to create. Sometimes people feel that way from like watching shows or movies, series, books, things like that. Watching like tutorials or watching other artists process can be inspiring because it makes you want to try out new techniques and things. So I would say try to find whatever sparks your inspiration and really feed into it if you can. And yeah, it's also okay and natural to like take breaks from doing art. So it doesn't mean that you're never gonna get back into it. There have been times where I took a break as well. I think my longest break was like 1.5 years, where I kind of stepped away from making art, and at the time also stepped away from it as a career, and then fortunately got back into it. But yeah, it is normal, and it doesn't mean that you're done, you know? It's just something that a lot of artists go through. Project says I seem to change up my creative endeavors every few years. Went from photography to 3D modeling to fame development to animation, and now back to photography. That's an interesting point. Maybe trying something creative that's like slightly different as well. Like maybe that could be it. Trying a new medium. Foster says I would love to get together with a group of artists in person. I think that would really help. Me too. Me too. I would love to join like a sketch group or something like that. I've got to keep my eye out for something like that, like a urban sketching or something. I do think that would be a lot of fun. Okay, Little Meow Meow Art says because of my health issues, it can be hard to do art. I think I sometimes would wish I could return to the mindset I had a couple years ago where everything was new and fresh. Now I know a lot, so there's not that much new to do and learn, and you end up in a routine just doing what you know you're good at. Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's a really interesting insight. So I wonder if like in that case, trying a new medium or like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit is helpful. Sometimes it doesn't sound fun though. You're like, why do I want to be outside of my comfort zone? I want to be in it. I want to, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't sound good, but it can be good for you. I wonder, it's like, you don't want to not do what you do, but it can be fun to like try, like I've been lately wanting to try using colored pencils a little bit, and I've messed with it a tiny bit. I haven't really used it in an actual art piece yet. I've only done like little doodles and stuff, but sometimes just trying something new, even on the side, because Little Meow Meow, you have like a beautiful account on Instagram with all your artworks. They look so like nice, and you have like your style that's very recognizable. So I understand it's like not always nice to, you feel like you don't want to mess with that, but maybe you can like privately do some experiments. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be something for Instagram or something like that. Just mess around a little bit with something in your own private art time. It can be cool. You know who has really inspired me? Actually, there's two artists that have inspired me with the pencil thing. So one is Poopy Cat. Addison, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the support. I'm gonna type a name in chat because I know you're like, Poopy Cat, what? If you've not heard this name before, you're like, what are you talking about? She cracks me up with this. Poopy Cat, she's so sweet, amazing artist. Like, I love her work, and she used to stream on Twitch. I don't know if she ever does these days, but back when I used to stream here before I took a long break, she used to also stream. And she does digital and traditional work, and it's so inspiring to me how much her work looks the same. Like, she really nails it. Her digital work looks just like her traditional work. And anyway, she does like a watercolor kind of workflow with watercolor, and she does colored pencils on top of that, and it's just gorgeous. And I'm like, when I see her art, I'm just like, ooh, it just looks so fun, and I want to try that kind of workflow. So she is one. And then I watched a video by James Gurney on YouTube where he painted a tortoise, and he used a colored pencil in with his, I believe, gouache painting or watercolor. I can't remember now. I think it was gouache, but either way. And the way the textures looked and everything, it just looked really fun to do, and the results were awesome. So I've been kind of like it would be fun to try, you know, getting into that a little bit. So it's not like I'm gonna change everything that I do and become like, well, I guess it's possible that I would love that new workflow and stick with it, but I don't think so. I think it's just one more thing to play around with and have fun. I don't expect that I'm gonna completely like permanently change my workflow, but it's nice to have like different things to do now and then, you know? Hey Spectre! Yeah, I agree. I really love his videos. Very calming and always educational, and you feel like you went out on a little adventure, you know? Her work looks like the entire season of summer. Isn't it just so joyful? I love it. You guys have to look her up if you don't already follow her. Okay, so this has dried. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on those flowers over here a little bit. So on the left, the flowers are white, but we're kind of seeing them in shadow, so they're not gonna be very light, and there's gonna be a lot of bounce light. I wonder if this is already too light. That might be okay. I realize this is a very small detail. I don't know how well you guys are getting to see this. I hope you can see it okay. But I'm just putting a little bit of a light on these flowers, a little bit of a lighter color, because these are white flowers in shadow, so they need at least a little bit of light on them. Addison says, do you sometimes do something different compared to the reference, like perhaps bring out the petals with less muted colors? Yes, I definitely change things up sometimes. It just depends on the situation, like if I see an opportunity, or sometimes there's something in the reference that I don't really like, and then I'll leave it out. So I definitely add and subtract things. Right now I'm gonna add some flowers here. They do exist in the reference, but I think what I might do is so the reference has yellow and white flowers, and I think I like the amount of white flowers, but I feel like the yellow flowers, like little buttercups, I think maybe. Anyway, I think there could be more of those. So I'm thinking for this scene, that's one thing I might change, is add a little bit more flowers. But I definitely change things. Hey Outrower, welcome. And I kind of hope that as I get more practice and my skill level increases, I hope I'll find more things to change. I think that's something that hopefully comes with time, you know, and experience. Because I think, you know, sometimes I see artists whose work I really love and see their reference and then see what they do, and I'm thinking to myself, how did you think of that? You know what I mean? There's a few people that come to mind. Nathan Fowkes is one. He really has a unique vision. And whenever I see his reference picture and then what he paints, I feel like what he chooses to do with colors and stuff from the original and simplifying shapes and things, it's like, it's amazing. So I kind of hope eventually I'll be able to like feel how to make more changes. It's like you can't force it. So sometimes it sort of speaks to me and says, okay, it would look good if you did this here, you know, and you actually get the feeling to do something like that. And then other times I don't, and then I just stick with the reference. Oh, thank you, Shadow. Yeah, her stuff makes me really happy. So I'm putting in these white flowers, but like I was saying earlier, they're very, I'm mixing a lot of paint in with this white because this is in the shadows. So even though it's white, if we used pure white here, it would just pop right off the page and it wouldn't look right at all for the amount of shadow in this area. It's kind of interesting if I show you here, color that I'm using. Look how dark that is. Oh my gosh. And this is what I'm using to paint white flowers. That's crazy, right? That just goes to show how color is all relative. to what's around it in the scene and value. It's very tricky. Very tricky sometimes. Efficient says, speaking of, I saw a video on using gray and colored background on your palette as well to help decide colors. Quite interesting, never thought about that. Oh, so having your palette be a gray instead of like a sort of a mid-tone gray or something like that? That is very interesting. I think I would like to try that. I mean, this one that I have is maybe the closest thing to that. All the other ones I have are pure white, and this one is like a little bit beige-y. But Addison says, oh, I don't want to open up a whole other can of worms regarding camera settings and color corrections. Oh my gosh, and monitor calibration. Oh, all that is kind of a nightmare. Hi, Squeakcalf. Good to see you. I use a gray glass palette for my oil paints. My mom introduced me to the idea. How cool! Thank you for chiming in. That's awesome. Awesome to hear. I'm very surprised. I'm surprised I haven't come across this idea before. It makes so much sense. Monitor calibration, my nightmare. Gray midtone, supposedly the best for mixing. Huh. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. Okay, so I have a lighter color. You can see here. Actually, you can't because my camera's totally blocking it. Here I am. I've just made a lighter green. So yeah, it's gonna, I'm gonna paint over some of these right here and add like one layer lighter of the white, and bringing that like on the top side of these flowers just so it gives them a little bit of dimension. So facing up, just like a little bit of almost rim light to them. You can put a gray paper behind glass too. That is very smart. That's probably what I should probably try, because I think I'll find a gray paper and glass faster than I'll find like a perfectly mid-tone gray palette, unless they make something like that for artists that you can actually buy. Like finding a gray plate. I like to use like dinner plates and stuff for palettes. So I've added a little bit more flowers than what there actually are in the photo, I think. I'm only worried that this grouping is getting too like hard to read or something. Like there's flowers and there's spaces there you can see to the water behind there, so it's kind of making this area where there's a lot of like that light color, and some of it is from the flowers, some of it is from the spaces, and I just feel like it's readability wise here it's getting a little questionable. Jibby, hey. Welcome. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry, the flowers, but I think, so I'm gonna try to fix the issue. So I'm gonna paint a little bit above there and try to close off just some of those spaces and darken it just a little bit. I've got to be careful. I don't want to go too far. But yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Yep, I need to wait for this to dry, and then I will do that. Okay, what else can we do? Serial Dust, hello! Haven't caught you on Twitch in ages. Beautiful piece here, so different than the digital character portraits fan art you used to do, but still so awesome. Thank you! It's nice to see your name in the chat. And yes, oh my gosh, my art has gone through so many phases over the years or decades. If I go back even further, then the phases get even more dramatic. But I feel like I finally found my home with like landscape painting and nature painting. I don't know, I really love gouache, and painting this kind of environment scenes just makes me feel very happy. And I don't know, I wonder, yeah, I just can't imagine not having found this type of art that I'm doing now. But it's interesting because it really got spurred on by me moving. Like, I came to the Netherlands, it was a totally different environment, landscape and everything, and I started feeling more inspired to paint landscapes after seeing like this new place, and seeing the foliage here, especially in the summer, really made me want to try to paint it. And then next thing you know, just went on a whole new direction. But thank you very much for your support, and it means a lot when people support my art, even though there have been big changes and things. And you know, thank you for being positive about that. It can be hard sometimes, you know, because, well, some people like certain things, and when you change what you do, it's not really their cup of tea anymore. And that's also totally understandable and totally okay. But you know, it's always nice when people sort of follow along the journey or are supportive of that. Creating Lightly says, how do you decide the amount of atmospheric perspective that you add to the background? Do you wing it, or feel it on the go, or do you try to stay close to the reference? I use the reference a lot. That's a good question. I use the reference a lot to help me illustrate it well, but I usually try to exaggerate it from the reference, because these photos that I paint in gouache are almost always photos that I've taken. So I've been to this place in person and took this picture, and most of the time my camera like really tones down the atmospheric perspective. Like it just boosts the contrast and really flattens things out. And it's kind of sad, but that's just what happens. So I try to remember what it looked and felt like when I was there. I feel like it was more dramatic. Like, I feel like in person, this felt even more faded out. So when I paint it, I try to paint it a little bit more how it felt being there. And even if I didn't take the photo, I kind of take that knowledge that I have of those types of places and use it like that. I think it's always nice to kind of like make it a little more dramatic, because then you're really getting across that feeling to people. So I do kind of try to tend to exaggerate it. That said, sometimes I try to exaggerate it and I just don't pull it off, you know what I mean? Like, this is me exaggerating atmospheric perspective, and I feel like I could have done more. Like, I think maybe it would have been even cooler if I did more of a difference right here, so that way this layer would have popped out even more from this layer. This is more distant than this, and I feel like it works okay. But yeah, that's something could have pushed it even more. Let's see. Serial Death says, that's really cool and inspiring. Never really explored much outside of figure drawing, but I know I need to start so I can at least create appealing backgrounds for the characters. Oh my gosh, the backgrounds thing, it's so funny, because I totally remember that feeling too, because when I used to do characters backgrounds, it would always be like, oh, here we go. But it's hard. It's hard involving characters with backgrounds. I feel like even though I do a lot of landscape painting now, I still don't find it easy necessarily to combine them, because there's something about putting a character in the environment and like making them feel like they're really there, kind of blending those two together, that is a challenge. But you can do it, and you're welcome to like join us anytime if you want. Like, I right now my streaming schedule is, I'm kind of doing every other week, where I'm doing 1 week on Behance and doing digital painting, and then the next week Twitch, traditional painting. I'm just going back and forth. When I stream on Behance, I do digital painting, and we do like speed paint studies, and we'll do a couple in a row. And anyway, if you ever want to join us, it's fun and casual, and you can just We pick a scene to paint. It's a lot of landscapes, but also other stuff too, like still life and things like that. And we just paint for practice, and that doing those is like really what got me, like really broke me into landscape painting and got me like a lot of practice quickly. It really helped. It's just an idea. No pressure, but you're always welcome. Project says, in October, can you paint some really moody and atmospheric scenes? Let's try at least one. I think it would be fun to do. And when that time of the year comes around, which is coming, I do feel inspiration to do stuff like that. It just doesn't last long. Like, I doubt that I would do a whole big series of moody paintings. I say that, who knows, maybe it happens, but we could definitely do one. At least one I'm down to try on stream. I think it would be really fun. That's smart, Spectre. So with the atmospheric perspective, Spectre says, in such cases, I edit it down with lowering the contrast in post and slightly getting the saturation up. Yeah, it's a smart idea to like do some edits to your photo. Like if I could do that in Photoshop and then paint from that, you know? Oh, thank you, Addison. Thanks. It's like slow back and forth adjusting things to eventually get there, you know? Because sometimes I don't really get it right and then I've got to like paint over some things, but it's like eventually, most of the time we can eventually get there with like little adjustments. Pablo says, I'd be interested to see you do a gouache, still life, or other subjects in general. I think it'd be cool. You know, it would probably be good for me, like what we were saying earlier about going outside of your comfort zone and all that. It would definitely be outside of my comfort zone. So I would be willing to try it. Again, I doubt I would want to stay in that topic long because it's not what I'm most inspired by, but I can definitely do something here and there like that. Title of the series, Moody by Maddie. You can thank me later. Nice. So ready for fall. Yeah, we were talking about it earlier. It is always such a nice, like, cozy mood. It's a good mood. It's the autumn. Cool, Serial Dust. Well, for you and for anyone else who's trying to find my schedule, if you ever like forget which Wednesday it is and where I am, if you go to my website artbymaddie.com, there's like a live stream schedule link, and you just click on that, and then yeah, it will say which Wednesday and where I am. I have a couple weeks that I'm gonna be taking off coming up soon. It's like in a couple weeks from now. I will be visiting family in the US and meeting my niece for the first time, and so I won't be streaming for a little bit, but then after that, when I come back, yeah, we'll be back at it. So I'm just sneaking in the some last little details here, and then basically what I'm gonna do is probably just be done with this for the day and come back tomorrow and take another look. I just feel like I need to wait and get a fresh look at it after a little bit of time. I had a really good time. I feel like it went so fast. I can't believe that this was almost 4 hours. Crazy. Thanks everyone for hanging out. I really appreciate you. Bye everybody.